Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's episode of Hey Sister. Hey Sister, how are you?
I'm doing well. I was just trying to catch up on this AJ Johnson story. So,
Well, certainly we can get into that tonight if you would like. Hey Jody, how are
hey,
you?
Jody.
It's so good to see you. So good to be back live with you all for our monthly hot topics. If you are tuning in now, let us know where you watching from. Um, man, just when we think things are gonna be normal, right? How about
Did we think
that?
that ever?
Hey Cam, how you doing?
Hey,
Thank you for
Cam.
tuning in tonight. Yeah, well, just when we think things are gonna be normal, we just gonna, just the foolery always breaks out, right? Yes. All right, Nashana in from Baton Rouge,
I know.
Louisiana. How you doing, girl? Um, we trying to look fresh. I got my We Buy Black shirt on today. It is Black History Month. So if you don't know about We Buy Black, I'm just going to give them a shout out. I am not paid to do this. It is a service that I've used. It is a marketplace, an online marketplace for Black owned businesses. My black owned business ain't registered with them either. But I'm just saying, I wanted to shout them out because we're always looking for ways and opportunities to support black owned businesses. And We Buy Black is a great place to do that. You can get everything from light bulbs, laundry detergent, garbage bags, whatever household needs you have, toothpaste, Q-tips. You can find a plethora of products at We Buy Black on their marketplace. You can try it out and buy like a bag. That's what I've done before, just like buy $100 bag and get a whole bunch of different things. And so I encourage you all to give it a try. Just check it out. It's worth the effort, right? Because as we talk about some of the topics that we have tonight, and that we've continued to talk about the topics that we talk about every week, every month, we know that economics and the power of economics for freedom. And so, if we have our dollars, if we sow them into our own community and our own businesses, that is certainly a way to liberation and freedom. So that's one of my things, and I'm gonna drop the site in the chat. Um, what about you, sister? How are you supporting Black businesses this month?
Well, first of all, I've been negligent because today's the 6th and the days just start moving really quickly. But there are some black businesses and black business owners that I definitely want to shout out, especially. I've been using my LinkedIn platform. So it was a young lady that I met, Miss Geneva Taylor, at the conference last week, who has a staffing and recruiting service. And I posted about our meeting and how we had these many things in common, namely being engineers who were somewhat introverted. And I know it's hard for people to believe that I'm an introvert, but really I am. And so it was a great conversation, but she was one of the people that I highlighted. And I gotta highlight Nishana, who has worked with me on helping me to curate some thoughtful gifts. And so she has a company, So Curate It. So Nishana will have to drop in those comments about her company as well. But I saw the other day something about the by Black owners.
Mhm.
It's a husband and wife, and they got married at 17 when they were in high school. I was like, Amen, Amen to Black love, and Amen to Black women. I'm gonna just have to shout it out because, man, I just don't even see marrying at 17 years old. Like, and still doing it and still being together. So that's company is amazing all around, just off of that.
Just off of that one thing, right? Well, we dropped it in the comments. If you haven't visited the We Buy Black marketplace, give them a try. Y'all know I have some of my favorite Black-owned businesses. We'll be shouting out more as the month goes along. We'll be sharing them on social media as well as here when we come to you weekly on Hey Sister, because we want to expand, right, their footprint and introduce you to some really amazing products and services that are out there. So shout out for this week. So tonight it's all about the hot topics. Y'all know it's the first Sunday in the month. That's when we come and talk to you all about hot topics. And I just got back from being with my sister in her hometown, in her neck of the woods. And it was like tomfoolery popping off each and every day. And so at the beginning of the week, and you know my son is at an HBCU, we had this plethora of bomb threats in HBCUs. If your HBCU receives a bomb threat, drop a bomb in the comments to let us know.
Do we dropping bombs in the comments?
Let's drop the bombs in the comments, because I think people need to understand and they need to know that this was widespread. I know that NBC News has reported that it was six juveniles. But nonetheless, this was a widespread attack on HBCUs. And yeah, I'm kind of salty about that.
Yeah, very much so. Tiffany Cross actually had the president of Jackson State on Saturday, yeah, I guess yesterday, or on her program. And you know, one of the things that was noted was that you know, maybe nothing was found, but it disrupted the environment, the learning environment. And when you take, for example, being from Louisiana, you take schools like my undergraduate institution, your undergraduate institution, and you think of the fact that these students, many of whom have been disrupted since they started their college experience. They've been disrupted by hurricanes, they've been disrupted by COVID, and now to be disrupted by this bomb threat. And unfortunately, we just do not have the resources that other institutions obviously take for granted. I mean, similarly, along with the bomb threats to my university, there was a report that came out about the lack of funding. I think it was Forbes. I can find the article. I'll drop it in here. The lack of funding to HBCUs in comparison to land grant universities, the comparable land grant university in that particular area. And since 1987, you know, Southern University has been underfunded to the tune of about $1.3 billion. So we just don't need anything that continues to disrupt the education. Our children go to these schools, and we're grateful that they choose HBCUs many times because they have not been protected in their environments when they were growing up. You know, it's not like all Black people who go to HBCUs went to a Black high school, went to a Black elementary school. Very often there are a number of students who have gone to schools where they were, as Black people, in the minority population, and they had a very different experience. And so they go to HBCUs in order to have an experience where they're not being othered. And so to have these minors execute these bomb threats across schools across the country, it's problematic at best. But it's criminal at worst in the fact that it's not being treated like a terrorist threat is a problem for me. I don't care how old they are, because they're old enough to know better. And you definitely were old enough to know better after you did it one time.
Yeah. Well, you know, so you talked about the article in Forbes, and I'm gonna go ahead and share at least this screen right here so people can see. And if you can see some of those numbers, we can't really blow it up much further. But if you just take a look at these numbers, like this is the real bomb that's been dropped, right? And that's why we started off the top of this talk today about economics. These are all land grant institutions. And I know Tennessee State just received some funds from their state legislature, but that we're constantly have to fight against headwinds for equity and fairness, and so shout out to Delaware State and Central State and those states for continuing to fund their land grant institutions equitably, right? Because that's all we asking for is equity. We're not asking for more or less.
Right.
We're asking for our equal share or our equitable share based on the promise, right? That is based on the promise. So for those of you who are in Florida, and you got connections to FAMU, and you got friends who are connected to FAMU, look at these. Almost, what is that? I can't even tell you how many commas are there.
Well, the total is 12 billion across the board. So 12,813,420,326.
And that's just looking at these institutions. So this is not looking at private institutions. These are looking at public institutions. And so to me, that's the real bomb that's dropped. So we understand that some juveniles, and unfortunately, the sinisterness of racism continues to be perpetuated because it's being passed on.
Mm-hmm.
That they thought maybe this was a fun experiment, but don't realize the impact of their little social experiment and to do this online to like wield these threats. But we have bigger threats that we're facing every day, and the economics is a big part of it.
The economics is,
like Rosalind said, usually we have to sue for our monies, right? And that's just it's terrible. It's terrible.
Yeah.
So
it is terrible. And the other thing that I'll say before we switch topics is, it's overwhelming and it's frustrating. And it's frustrating because we can't win. On the one hand, you tell us pull ourselves up by our bootstraps, get out there and work harder, strive for more, be better. And then when we try to do that, we're still being robbed of something. At the end of the day, I know that, the state of Mississippi, for example, Jackson State, Alcorn State, Mississippi Valley State, those schools had to sue. And it was many, many years for that what a desegregation case to be settled and them to get monies. Well, here's the thing. We had already had a desegregation case back in Louisiana in the early 80s. So the fact that we had already settled in the early 80s and you still found a way to underfund my institution by $1.3 billion, where would we be? Where would we be if we had just gotten what was due us? Mm-hmm. Like you said, we're not asking for more, just what was due us. And then folks want to wonder when they put out a schedule about playing LSU, why I'm not excited about it. But that's a whole nother story.
That's another conversation for another day. Absolutely. Absolutely. Uh-huh. So we trying to have a good discussion over here. Man, so our next hot topic, this one is a little more light and it's gonna transition us into something, but if y'all hadn't heard, the Washington football team, formerly known as the Redskins, more recently known as the Washington football team, because it took them I don't know how many years to recognize their insensitivity and racism. has now changed their name to the Washington Commanders. And I'll be honest with you, at this point, that whole team needs to go away and need to disappear. Okay. We already know about y'all shenanigans from the Bill Gruden emails. We already know. We'll get into the other NFL.
John Gruden, you mean?
John Gruden.
I don't know who Bill Gruden was.
Well, you know, I conflated the thing because Bill Belichick didn't know white grind from black grind. You know what I'm saying? He was sending his text messages. So, you know, it all starts to bleed together when we call it. It's the National Foolery League. That's what it is. It's the National Effing Foolery League. That's what it is.
I think it's the other F, but it ain't foolery that I'm thinking.
Yes. So we got a child by on that. We got a Commanders. Yes, Washington needs to be dipped in the baptismal pool, honey. They for sure need Jesus. I ain't gonna lie about that. But why the Commanders of, you know? And I posted something about it the other day. I was like, if you watch Handmaid's Tale, you like, oh, they really trying to get us one step closer. The Commanders, for real. I don't know what you think, sister. Tell me, because
So I'm looking it up because, again, it would not have been the first name I would have come up with. So, commander, a person in authority, especially over a body of troops or a military operation, a member of a higher class in some orders of knighthood. Yeah, I don't know.
And they've been losing how long? They think they have a high class, Gus. Stop it. Can you stop it? Maybe they're trying to convince themselves, but I'm not convinced.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. They gonna, speak it into existence. Yeah. Listen, at the end of the day, I thought they were just fine as the Washington football team. We weren't gonna mistake them for like the other Washington football team, like
the one,
right? So, but if they like it, I love it.
They weren't gonna be the Maryland football team because they're the Baltimore Ravens. We be clear on who y'all were. It was enough. And sometimes you got to learn to leave well enough alone. But some people will never learn, honey, and they just do not want to leave.
As having spent so many years having been a derogatory term towards Native Americans and Indigenous Americans, I don't know. I just guess it felt like Washington football is cool. Like y'all could literally just be like, go Washington. But that's not my team. So, hey, my team is the same. And it ain't for Christianity, even though that's what people think. So
they the saints doing some ungodly things, but we gonna leave that alone.
Like I said, because it's not about the saints. Tip actually is for the Saint Bernard dog. But
we got it. We remember the Saint Bernard dog. That's the little mascot.
I'm just saying. That's why
I don't know how many people the decision went through, but clearly not enough. And they probably didn't look like us because we probably would have told them better. But that's why you need diversity at the table, because probably some women and some people of color and some Black people probably would have said, that might not be the best choice. But I'm sure they contracted it out to some high-paid marketing company.
I'm sure they did, but you mentioned Black people and women. No, they needed to have Native Americans at the table because those are the people who you had offended for all of those years. So those are the people who should have been at the table. Or if you wanted to.
Well, I said people of color, but
I thought you said women and Black people, but
women, people of color, indigenous. Everybody at the table but you all white men.
Well, if they wanted to mix it up, they could have just called it the Washington Whiteys and just kept it moving. Hey, balance it out.
I'm done. Anyway. All right. So y'all know we did a video early this week and we lied to y'all because we were supposed to come to you live on a special episode to talk about these couple topics, but we're going to talk about them tonight because I can't think of a better time because there's so much. We'll get to the other foolery in a bit, but did y'all get into Janet Jackson? It's all for
I just go to the 5, 4, 3. Oh shoot, I messed up.
No, you got that 3 wrong. There you go. That's that 3. Yeah. Man, this Janet Jackson documentary, they re-aired it this past weekend. If you missed it the first weekend, I thought that it was well done, phenomenal job. I still got questions, and maybe that's what the point is of a good documentary, make you still leave you wanting for more so that you can do some sort of follow-up at another age and stage. But I love that, Janet really, really, truly found her voice here, where not so much when she was singing about control, she didn't quite have it just yet, but really just stepped into her own as a woman to share her perspective, her point of view, her lived experiences in a very candid way. I still got some side eye for some of the things that was said. Now we know this question about this daughter is still a lingering question if you watch Inside Edition, child. But
well, no, it is not a lingering question with that sister. You is not the daughter, girl. Sit down.
Sister, you gotta find that link to that video and
I
share
will
it.
find it.
Drop it in and share with the people, honey. Oh my gosh. So yes, we saw Janet, Jolandi. Girl, we gonna have to. It was on A&E as well. It was on A&E as well. I don't know. We gonna have to fix this so you can see it. I haven't seen it yet, but she my girl. I'm sure it was good and enough to put our foot in the door, but not step all the way in the room with her. She can listen. The Scream video and how she didn't do it with MJ. Oh my gosh, that was so awful. But she said, when you think about their age differences, I'm gonna tell y'all something. Rebe is looking good for 70, what? 71, 72? How old is Rebe? Ree's looking good. Rebe and Tito is looking good. That's all I'm gonna say. They looks good. Randy looks good and healthy. Janet looks good and healthy. But Rebe was looking good for her age. Because Rebe was like,
I'll tell you how.
Got married, had her own child when Janet was born.
Yeah, she was born in 1950, so she's 71. She'll be 72 in May.
Yes, honey. Listen, if y'all ain't seen Centipede looking good. That's all I'm gonna let y'all know. Oh my God. And yes, and so their relationship changed when he did Thriller, but when he did Thriller, she was 16. So a lot of it made sense. Jody said, Lord, their mama had all them children. She sure did. And I did look up and confirm that it is believed that Marlon was a twin. And that twin died in childbirth. But
tell them what else you looked up, because I was trying to give Joe the benefit of the doubt.
Oh, well, we already know about Jovina.
No, we didn't. These people don't know about no Joe.
Oh, well, my sister was like, did Joe have any outside churn? I was like, yeah, we knew about this some years ago. That then came to the light. He had that relationship with that woman. That girl was born in 1974. And if y'all don't know about Giovanni, Jackson,
yes.
Y'all can look up Giovanni Jackson. Yes. Papa was a Rolling Stone, but he had a relationship with that woman for a longest time.
See, look. Felicia ain't know about Giovanni. Spell it for because
it's Johvonnie. Giovanni Jackson. You just look up Joe Jackson and children. But I will say this: for those of us who have children, my friend on here, she got young children. We didn't have that level of Joe Jackson commitment. We like Richard Williams and Joe Jackson, when they said they had vision for their children, they did. They had vision and a whip too. And clearly we didn't have that same level of vision and a whip. Okay. Oh my goodness. Yeah, girl, he sure did. Girl, you better go read about Giovanni. Giovanni had to come on and say yes. And she was on the talk and everything. She said she had a whole relationship with her daddy the whole time. She lived around the corner. Okay, from that Encino house. Giovanni lived around the corner.
Well, Janet didn't talk about that in the docs, so
Johnny
therefore,
Janet show didn't talk about it. Janet
um,
didn't talk about it. Y'all just look it up for yourself. I'll have to find something for y'all to look up.
all you gotta do is Google Giovanni, Johvonnie, Giovanni Jackson.
You didn't know that either.
I told you, didn't nobody know that?
Nobody knew that. I remember when she like came out. I think it was right after he passed. I think she started coming out publicly. Mm-hmm.
Right, Robin, exactly. That was the only sibling she knew.
Well, listen. Y'all didn't know. Well, I'm sorry y'all didn't know. All I'm gonna say is if you didn't watch the documentary, find it, watch it, enjoy the music, enjoy the stories, learning the behind the stories that we all know about, learn about the Super Bowl performance and that story more, and why she wants us to forgive Justin, but Black Twitter will not let her, and then why we had to drag Jermaine Dupri for filth on Black Twitter as well. It covered everything, and I loved it. So that's my last word on Janet Jackson. What's your last word, sister?
Well, I think my line sister Davita said it best. All the men in Janet's life pretty much did her dirty. And I'll say this, I was happy that I was here to witness this documentary. I've seen Janet in concert one time. And then the next time that I had purchased tickets to go to see her, that was when she announced her pregnancy. And so I didn't go. I just got a refund for my tickets. I didn't go after she had her baby and all of that stuff. So I was happy to hear her talk about her life in her words. I'm sorry to that man, Mr. Bobby Brown, because baby, obviously the relationship was more for you than it was for her because she did not mention you at all. And yeah, and it obviously
And the relationships clearly that was most important to her because she didn't mention that third husband either, but she might have an NDA on that one. We don't know.
She may. And listen, I wouldn't mess up my money either, Jen. And I wouldn't have said nothing about that man either, because I'm sure he is paying for his son handsomely. But I was very happy to hear her speak for herself in her own words. Yes, again, yeah, we still have questions. I was struck when it came to the conversation about the daughter. I was just struck that we just didn't definitively say, I don't have a daughter. And that's just that. Mm-hmm. It still felt like a lot of circular conversation about that. And Riri, if you watch her body language, she does not look at the camera that entire time when she's talking about it. And the one thing that you and I discussed was, Debbie Allen was like, well, where was the baby? Where's the baby? Where's the baby? If there was a baby, where was the baby? Here's what I know for sure. You can be pregnant and not end up having a baby. That can happen for multiple reasons. So I don't know if she ever was pregnant or not. Considering that she talks about him leaving her alone on the wedding night and leaving for 4 hours and leaving her alone in the hotel room. And she's like 18 years old in Indiana, in a place that, not in Indiana, I'm sorry, in wherever they from. She's there alone. If she had been pregnant and she learned afterwards that he was addicted to drugs, that they had their family, if you've watched anything about the DeBarges, their family had a very tumultuous upbringing as well. She may have chosen not to give birth. She may have miscarried because she was working very hard. She may never have been pregnant at all. We don't know. But I found it very interesting, the body language when they were talking about that topic. But as far as all the men in her life, from James to Renee,
Joe,
to Jane, her father, and I'm gonna throw Justin Timberlake in there. First of all, we have discovered you can't mess with nobody whose name start with a J, Janet. James, Justin, Jermaine. Throw them away. But no, I mean, seriously, I just felt like in a lot of ways, a lot of men in her life seemed to take advantage of her. And one thing I heard James say that I also heard Renee say, which was she doesn't open up to a lot of people, but they were able to gain her trust. And because they were able to gain her trust, I would have liked for them to have done her better. But the beautiful thing is at the very end, she said, despite it all, she wouldn't do it any differently. And so I am thankful for her music, her legacy, the fact that, we literally watched her grow up in front of all of our eyes. I don't know about you, but I wanted to be a part of Fame. We all wanted to take some classes with Debbie Allen being our dance teacher. So we all watched her grow up in front of our eyes. And so to see the woman that she's become, it's great. But them men, whew.
Child, them men's. Well, you know what? I'm glad Renee was documenting because we wouldn't have had all this footage. So clearly she won that in the divorce.
Yeah, I mean, why I think he was documenting because at the end of the day, he thought that this would probably be a production that he would do.
Mm-hmm.
And then once they ultimately got a divorce, when he asked for the $10 million or what have you, and it was some business transaction that he felt like he was entitled to. I'm sure he thought that his documentation would become something one day. So
yeah, I believe that too. And she most definitely is the ultimate entertainer, and I'm so excited. But if you didn't see Janet, if you got Showtime, or you know somebody that got Showtime anytime, got the app, log on for 7 days, get it free, whatever you need to do. But we need to talk about Cosby. Child, listen. I'm going to let you go first on this one, sister.
And somehow I knew you were going to do that.
And you see, I had to do like this. That's holding my mule. See, I had to pull it back.
So here's what I'll say. We watched the first 2 episodes, and I literally went to sleep with a headache. After those first 2 episodes, I took a shower that night, and I couldn't even process all of the things that were said and for how long. And then I watched the other 2 episodes, and they also I think the conclusion, all I could draw out of all of this, honestly, was we really do have to do a better job of separating the art from the artist. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't have, like, if you choose to boycott or cancel or no longer support somebody because they're a despicable human being, that is absolutely your right. I just know that I'm like, as the woman so eloquently stated, he was a rapist who had a really big TV show once. And that's where I'm at with it. I cannot celebrate folks for being good at their job. He was good at his job, but he is a despicable human being. And listen, maybe W. Kamau Bell has it all wrong. But my thing is, we cannot deny Bill Cosby's words out of his own mouth.
65 women.
65 women, but what you said on Larry King. 65 women, but what you said in that deposition that was revealed that shouldn't have been, because obviously
So he is out on legal technicality. Like we said, we know the court of law is not about justice, about proving a case. It is about following the laws, and they did not follow and do what they were supposed to do. So he is out right now because of that. But baby,
but your own words, by your own admission, this is something that you did. And look, stuff that other folks got away with and did, and maybe you was hanging out with some other folks who did those things, and so they didn't get in trouble. And so you want to apply, yesterday's rules to yesterday's situation, but now it's today's rules in today's situation. And even if you got away with it in the 1960s and the 70s, because when you start watching that timeline and them numbers grow, but baby, once you got to the 2000s, you already knew what it was. And Sister Camille, I don't know what sis is grappling with, other than to say, perhaps, sometimes we're challenged when we hear things about people and we say, but that's not the person I know. And so somebody can be a monster to one person, but not necessarily a monster to the other person. But the level of disrespect to the woman who had 5 of your kids, to have these women in your house.
He didn't start out in the house.
But
I guess after you get away with something in the 60s, in the 70s, by the time you get to the 80s, you figure I might as well bring them on the house. They've been on the set. I might as well bring them to my house. And I know I typed in the wrong interrogative there. It's supposed to be Abe versus Ann, but y'all know what I'm saying. That's my biggest takeaway. Is Camille a victim or a co-conspirator?
I don't know. All I could, of course, there were parallels made to R. Kelly in the documentary, and I wondered, it's a similar feeling I had about Andrea Kelly. Like, at some point, you cannot tell me you knew nothing, you heard nothing, you saw nothing. Even when they show him in an interview and you have him telling an interviewer to cut certain things out, and she's sitting there and she says nothing. It was a lot. Mm-hmm. And with everything going on in society right now, I was like, wow, it's a lot. It's a lot. So again, don't nobody show up at my job cheering for me. So I guess I got to stop showing up at these people's job and cheering for them. If you want to go see somebody go up on stage and you want to laugh for a few hours and you want to separate the art from the artist, that's cool. I just know we put people on the pedestal because they do a really good job. A lot of those women, what I heard them say was they trusted this man who handed them a pill and said, take this and take 2 of them.
Yeah, 1 ain't enough.
1's not enough. Take 2. You need to calm down. Let's bring it down. Why did you trust this? You don't know him from Adam.
And I'm going to tell you now, if you ever play backgammon, you ain't going to look at backgammon the same again, child. That's all I know. That was one of my takeaways. Like, backgammon used to be the game.
So many of the people trusted him because they trusted his characters. They believed he was a good father because he played a good father. And it's like, we can't. For me, it was just a self-examination of why are we putting people on a pedestal for the work that they do? Because he was good at his job, but it sounds like he was just not a good person at all.
So Keisha, I'm gonna toss that back to you and say that then why is she still with him if she was okay with the adultery but not the rape? Because they all were raped. You ain't watched the documentary, sis.
Well, one of the things that was very interesting that came out of the documentary, something else that I have to admit, I did not think of in this way, right? And I know one day when we blow up in the world, somebody's gonna take this episode of Hey Sister and chop it up and
use our words
sound
against
like
us.
I'm an awful person, right? But one of the things that I never really thought about in the way they projected, they explained it was, even if you take a pill, you consent to the drugs, you consent to the alcohol, but you still don't consent to the sex, right? And there's so many times that I have asked, like, why would you do that? Like, why would you go to this person's house you don't know? Why would you take this? Why would you? And again, the reminder that even with all of those things, you can still consent to a drink and a pill, and that still doesn't mean a person has a right to take advantage of you. And then I had to say, and what kind of crazy person wants to have sex with somebody who's motionless, powerless, and not even conscious? And that is the part that makes me realize you are sick.
Mm-hmm.
Because like you said, there are people who have sex with dead people, and we know that's a sickness. So it should be equated to be the same if it's somebody who's completely unconscious and they have no power over the situation.
Ooh, child. All right, we got some comments here. I wouldn't go to his house and stay if his wife wasn't there unless I was there for whatever. Otherwise, I'd be like, I gotta go see a man about a horse. But yeah, but for some people, it was all over at that point because they had already taken what they thought was water or a cocktail and was like, wait a minute, how am I? I'm like, I can't even stand up right now, right? I believe they all were raped. We know she believed him and was willing to turn an eye to his cheating, calling them bees and hoes instead of believing the women. I need to see the doc fast. You need to see this documentary fast. It is 4 parts. So it is an investment of time. But I promise you, when we say we need to talk about it, we need to talk about it. I still love the Cosby Show. I still love A Different World. But there are people who participated in this, as they said, who were brave enough to say stuff. There are others who chose not to. But when you see it, the pill would have bothered me. No thanks, sir. Yeah, but in some of those instances, yeah. Beverly Johnson recognized game immediately and said, "You mofo." Right. That part. That's what, and when she was interviewed on The View, and that's what it took for some people when she was interviewed, because it was so many other women prior to that. It goes back to 1965. Like what? Before I was even a thought or figment in some people's imagination, these acts were taking place. But just it was for her when she came out. Then some other people like, oh no, she's not lying. Like that's when they felt it. It took certain people to kind of push the tipping point over. And some of these women now have gone on and gotten laws changed in their state in terms of the statute of limitations on sexual assaults and things of this nature. We know that there's still more work to be done. But when you have names like Commanders, women don't sleep. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, the last thing I'll say, sister, and what I did appreciate also about what W. Kamau Bell did in this documentary, which kind of harkens back to Janet's doc, which also harkens back to the New York Times doc about Nipplegate or the world wardrobe malfunction, whatever you want to call it. It's the men, the Les Moonveses of the world, the Matt Lauers of the world. It's the men who had, in so many ways, when it came to Janet, like just I can't come up with the right word, but just
hypocrisy
on
100, like hypocrisy times 100.
Right. When it was another, they wanted, like, Les Moonves wanted her to grovel, and he wanted her to beg to come back to CBS, to be on CBS again, to be a part of the Grammys and all of these things. And then you see
years later, he tried to destroy her career. He did. And he in some circles he did.
He did. And right.
While
And
he
so
over there having sexual assaults on women in the workplace.
right. And so that was one of the things that like I said, W. Kamau Bell did a good job of highlighting that, you know, it ain't just Bill Cosby, you know, it is, because you know there are those people in the camp, why are we trying to destroy a black man? No one's trying to destroy a black man. But let me be very clear. I said not necessarily the pound cake speech, but that hooked on phonics speech, that before all of this came to the surface, that had turned me off so much to him, because I felt like it was a wealthy black person thumbing his nose down at the least amongst us, the poorest amongst us, to say you need to buy your children hooked on phonics instead of buying them $200 pair of Jordans. And then when I saw in this documentary what he did to Wanda Sykes at I believe it was the Emmy Awards, that was so rude and insensitive and hurtful. And it's like, who did this person become? This man who has lauded himself as Dr. Cosby, who I didn't even know was a college dropout. This man who has lauded himself as an education expert, who the people like, baby, he bought that doctorate degree. And so and then to see the hypocrisy of all these other men who also have participated and done some of the very same things. It's not an attack on a black man specifically. It is attacks on an institution,
the patriarchy,
of misogyny, of rape culture, where we believe it is women are disposable and replaceable, and they shouldn't have agency over their body, that men feel like they should be able to just take whatever they want from you, especially if they're wealthy and if they're powerful. And that just is
and then if you're a black woman, honey, forget about
right. And so you said, for a lot of people, you know, Beverly Johnson changed a lot of minds. I didn't know about the sister in Nevada, but she had a very, like, her whole situation with her husband and being supportive of her and all that was very powerful to me. And to see her fight to get laws changed, the statutes of limitations changed. And listen, so a word that we learned, and I know we got to move on, was, what was it? Reflexivity. Was that the word we learned? In terms of understanding that our experiences and our where we grew up, how we grew up, our experiences, our life story, background, all of those things, they do shape our perspective of a thing. I'll be the first to say, having an uncle who served 18 years in prison because a white woman accused him of rape, and he was later exonerated, that does color, and it has colored my opinion about a lot of things. So when the Bill Cosby stuff came out, just to be completely transparent, yes, it was hard for me, because it was like, oh, it's only white women. Oh, okay. So I probably too had that. Here we attacking a black man, but as more information became available, one must remember, no, Bill, you have a problem. And the fact that you still haven't admitted it, even though you admitted it in the deposition that you did this.
Yes.
I can't. I'm going to still love the Cosby Show, and I'm going to still love A Different World, but I can't with you. Ever.
Never, ever. Ooh, child, listen. Oh, my. And so maybe there's some reflexivity that's coming into play here, but the National Foolery League is at it once again, and this week was no different. So y'all know they amping up they Super Bowl. I'm gonna drop in there the link for the commercial for their Super Bowl halftime show, Pepsi's Super Bowl halftime show. Now that's Pepsi. You know, Pepsi paid for this. So I'm gonna drop that in there for y'all to take a look. But child, let me tell y'all. One Mr. Brian Flores, who was the head coach for the Miami Dolphins, who then was fired recently for like bringing them out of the trash heap and actually making them having a winning season. But he was interviewing for the head coaching job, and that's when I made that Freudian slip and said Bill Gruden earlier. And yeah, so one Mr. Bill Belichick sent him a text message. So on, and I think that just set it off for him right there. So on February 1st, first day of Black History Month, he had dropped that lawsuit on their discriminatory practices and hiring. And child, we were like, we already know all this. This ain't new. This been going on for so long. How many Black coaches have left who've had winning season and winning records and only get 1 year, 2 years in some cases? Very rarely. You bring on these people who have no NFL experience. Jacksonville just did this foolish experiment with Urban Meyer once again and had to fire his behind after a year. They continue the NFL. Colin Kaepernick still ain't got no job. Why? Because they continue the NFL. And then they're gonna issue, they had the audacity and the nerve to issue like they statement about how they diversity is is so important to them. No, it ain't. And now they have some programs. They got some women who are assistant coaches now. But y'all ain't dealt with the Black problem yet. And until y'all do, everything else gonna be an issue. I'm just saying. Go ahead, sister.
Oh, okay. I didn't know. Listen, okay, so I don't even know where to begin with the NFL. I'm befuddled.
So many things to talk about. Tom Brady retired this week too. Like I said, the whole damn week, NFL been NFLing.
Yeah, so Tom Brady retiring is fine. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, he's 45 or 44 or 45, something like that. 44 going on 45, whatever it is. I can't retire today or tomorrow. So thus says the Lord, good job, Tom. You have done more than enough. Go on ahead and go buy an island or something. So as far as the NFL is concerned, like I said, if talking out of both sides of your mouth was a person, the NFL will simultaneously say "in racism" on their helmets or put "in racism" in the end zone, or even have folks wearing shirts that say Black Lives Matter or what have you, and then turn right around and basically say that Brian Flores's lawsuit is without merit. Y'all have done too much to say that it's without merit.
So somebody dropped in there about Tony Dungy. You got Jim Caldwell. You got Herm Edwards, who's now coaching over there at Arizona State. My boy, who I think he passed on now, Denny Green, and all his struggle. I mean, you got to get that second head coaching job, right? Because a lot of these Black coaches that might get one head coaching job, they never get that second job. When we see these other head coaches who have losing records get hired over and over and over and over and over again. You got Byron Leftwich out here going on these interviews, and then now y'all gonna say, well, he had Tom Brady, so maybe it really wasn't him. But this other person can come in and who ain't coached an NFL team yet, or at that level yet, and get a job. And there was another, and I'm sorry, I'm taking over here, but there was another segment on, and I can't remember where I was listening to this, but it was so very true and it was profound because all of those NFL coaches that I named are former players as well. But you got white boys who've been they somebody's daddy's child, right? Who they daddy was a good coach. What's that dude name? I gotta scream over here to my husband. Type it in the comments who I'm talking about. What's his name? His daddy used to be coach at Tampa Bay, the offensive coordinator, but he keep getting job after job, NFL and college football, just because of who his daddy was. Kyle Shanahan. Thank you. And there's another one with an M. The name starts with an M, last name. Anyway, all of them. It's ridiculous.
Well, I'm going to say this, sister. For someone who's boycotting the NFL, you certainly have a lot of data.
Well, no, because this is important to me. And I know, like Joe Lindy typed in here, this is typical corporate America. Actually, it is. And this part is important to me because I do have a husband who watches ESPN every day, just like a lot of y'all husbands out there. So I pick up some of this stuff, but I also do my own research because it goes back to, as you said, the workshop we went to on Monday of last week, the data. When you just look at the data, when we looked at the data about the underfunding of HBCUs, who are equivalent land grant institutions, to the tune of $12 billion, but then we continue to outperform in the quality product we produce as graduates, the data is telling you that your decision making is shabby, at least, and piss poor at best, which means you're just doing an effed up job. And the same thing goes with this NFL and these coaches. So we're going to get a bomb ass halftime show, like you said, led by a man who, yes, I grew up on Dr. Dre in the 90s, and I love MJB, and I love Kendrick Lamar. But Dr. Dre, Snoop, who has redeemed himself big time, and one Eminem, they've all had issues with the legal system, and Dr. Dre specifically with being an abuser of women. Okay.
Well, I'm gonna
say insanity of it all.
Yeah, it is insanity. Look, listen. The insanity of it all is that you have people, white males specifically, who not only never coached a football team, who never played football, who will sit on social media and say it's not about race because 90% of the players are black. 70%, excuse me, of the players are black. And they will totally disregard the fact that but only 1 of 32 coaches is black. And so if they have the ability to play, if 70% of them have the ability to play, then surely at least 40% should have the ability.
I ain't even go that high. I'll say
40%, whatever.
10.
Should have the ability.
80-20 rule, whatever damn thing you want to apply. But the ridiculousness and absurdity of it all, because they used the same thing about, they said the same thing about not being able to be quarterbacks.
Right.
Well, they had the same thing when it talked about with the CTE issue and with the brain injury issue, and how black players were getting less because they said that their brain wasn't as valuable. It's talking about our intellectual capability and capacity as a people. And that I have a problem with. And that's why I have not watched. I have not let me turn on the game and watch. Have I watched games tangentially because somebody else might be watching, or I'm socializing with somebody that has the game on? I'm not going to say, don't turn it on. No. And so, yes, that's how I have still consumed some of it, but it is a bigger issue and a bigger problem for me. We got some comments.
It's a bigger issue and it's a bigger problem. But like I said before we started, at the end of the day, I am not going to be more passionate about you getting CTE than you are about you getting CTE.
But that's not even to me, that we are talking about hiring practices.
We are talking about
hiring
practices. Can I get to the point? We are talking about hiring practices. And so if you work for a company, just like Joe Lindy said, it's corporate America. It's very corporate America. All of us have been in situations where we've had to make a decision of whether or not we say something, we speak up, we stay quiet, we change companies. We've all been confronted with those issues. If that 70% of the players galvanized and said to their employer, we're not coming to work tomorrow. If that 70% of players galvanized behind one Colin Kaepernick when he first took a knee, he'd be playing. If that 70% of players would galvanize behind one Mr. Brian Flores and said, hey, it has been inequitable. It has been inequitable anytime there is a conversation about a skills position versus an intellect position or what have you. It's been a part of the conversation anytime you want to see how high we can jump or how far we can run. But when it comes to white counterparts, they're given options. And I mean, look, I love the New Orleans Saints. Everybody knows that. See. Okay. However, they knew that Drew Brees was going to retire. Okay, they at one point in this season called him about coming back and playing the game. And again, we know that there's a Colin Kaepernick out there, and he's not the only one, but there is a Colin Kaepernick out there. The hypocrisy of what's the young man? His name is escaping me, who got into the fight with his wife on the elevator.
Ray Rice
got into the fight with his wife on the elevator. His career was destroyed, even though as a married couple, not saying I agree with abuse because I don't, but as a married couple, they decided to handle that for themselves. She decided to stay with her husband. His workplace decided that what he did in his private life was embarrassing to their workplace. He could no longer work for them. But Ben Roethlisberger gets the opportunity to retire, even though he had been accused of rape more than one time. Dr. Dre gets the opportunity to perform the halftime show, even though he has been accused of being physically abusive to women in the past. So what I'm saying is, yes, it is a hiring issue. This one is a hiring issue. The other CTE issues, and at the heart of all of these issues is racism. So, but how can you expect these owners how many Black owners do we have?
None.
Okay. How do you expect these owners to make decisions in the best interests of the players if there's
not even about best interest of the players? It's about the data, and it's about what's fair, and it's about what's equitable.
And so if it's not fair and it's not equitable, and that's your employer as a players union, as a group, the question is,
we saw the comments that they made about the person who's over the players union.
Absolutely. And so again, so where's the 70%? Why is the 70% not using their voice?
Well, I'm gonna say this. I don't know what they're doing with their voice. I don't know of what they're doing in their collective work. I don't know what they're doing with their voice. I don't know what conversations they're having individually. I don't know what they're doing behind the scenes, because some things will not be visible to us. And I do not know what they're doing in with regard to just saying that this is not fair. I don't know. I just know what I see from a corporation standpoint and what the corporation is not doing, whether it's the people at Starbucks who finally unionized, I think in the state of New York, because they wanted fair wages. I don't know what it's going to take in terms of that effort, and that because they do have a union, and what they will do.
And that's my point. It is. Well, listen, each one of us who works for somebody.
We got a lot of comments that we need to get to.
That's fine. Let's go. I'm just saying, for each one of us who works for somebody, at some point in our lives, we are probably going to be met at a crossroads as well, because this is a capitalistic society that we live in. And race and racism is not at the, regardless of how many DEIB conversations are being had, racism, equity, inclusion, diversity, belonging, all of those things are buzzwords for a lot of these companies. They are not about doing the work. Like I said, the NFL has in racism on their helmets, and yet so many of their practices point to racist, institutional racism. So
all right, so one comment is about Josh McCown, who is the leading candidate for the Houston Texans, and he ain't even ever coached a high school football team as
exactly.
a head coach.
So we see the problem. So why would not, now if you play for the Texans, you mean to tell me y'all wouldn't get together and be like, I've done it in my workplace. I know when I have said, so you just not gonna interview nobody black, or you're not gonna interview no women for this position?
Well, they interview him. That's the whole point of Brian Flores' thing. They interview him as a sham. Lakeisha said the same way with the Supreme Court justices without a law degree, but we can't serve with a JD, MD, Fed, judge, college professor behind our name. Exactly. Because that mindset that a black person shouldn't be on the same level financially and intellectually as a white person, strictly because of the fact of that, keeps us from being treated fairly in all areas. It is about who people are comfortable with. They're not comfortable with you, period. Let's see. The only thing they understand is money. We boycott that cash register. They will grudgingly come to the table and make change. When Karen can't go skiing or shopping, it's a problem. It sure is.
Well, and if those, and like I said, and if those players if they fundamentally saw issues with their company, their employer, then they would be the ones standing up also.
But the shelf life of most players is 3 to 5 years. Those who have gone beyond the 3 to 5 year rank in terms of their employment with the organization, those who have gone beyond that for their employment, again, I understand even the hesitancy, because we know that there's hesitancy to speak out, to stand up, to do what Colin Kaepernick did, knowing that you're putting yourself on the sword and you may never be able to recover from that for
But then you gotta decide, because at the end of the day, Demetria, all I'm saying here is, yes, we could all get together and boycott. But you know what would be more powerful? If those players got together and said, we're not going to continue to take this level of abuse. We're going to support Brian Flores and others that look like him, who have pointed to the hypocrisy in these situations. That's who could really move the needle. That's who could have moved the needle.
You know what, sister? I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know if that's true. I really do not know if that's true. Now, it'll be true if they decide not to come out on Sunday.
Exactly.
And they breach a contract and not take a pay. But when you've worked for this one thing, I don't know how many people are willing to sacrifice that.
Well, then and so at the end of the day, because all of us have jobs, like I said, where some of us have had to come to a crossroads, and we've had to make choices and decisions. You talked about and I'm not trying to disparage anybody. You talking about with your husband watching ESPN. Obviously, I used to work at ESPN. I don't have to say anything, because we've seen it. We've seen it with the likes of Jemele Hill and Michael Smith and Michael Hill and just whoever. Name some other folks. We have seen exactly what it is. And so, but at some point, people have had to step up and speak out and say, this is wrong. Somebody from the inside got to say, we have a problem with this. And if they let Brian Flores stand out by himself, then that says a lot. That says a lot. I know that it's easy to believe, because you see the players, you believe that the structure in the back looks like the players on the field. Many people have that. Again, that's how I believe people felt about ESPN. So when all of these things started coming out, they're like, wait a minute, that feels incongruent, because what you see on the screen, you think that that's what's happening in the back of the house, and that's not. So I just feel like, if I'm not saying they're the only ones, but it kind of should start there, because it's their lives that are that's at stake. It's their livelihood at stake.
Well, I don't know about that. I don't know what's at stake, what's not at stake. I know we have a few more comments on this, but they're there for you to read. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you might need to scroll over on the Facebook to see some of the comments on Facebook, because that's where many of the comments that we've been showing up on the screen are.
I like what Felicia said. They do see issues as players, but they see that money more, so they let it happen. I do believe that is at the heart of it. And at some point,
well, that's at the heart of all of us. I mean,
absolutely. And that's why when Flores started out, when he sent the stuff out, he said, I know what I'm going to get as a result of this. So it says to me, though, but who better to say, man, I stand with him, than the people, the 70% that they keep alluding to say that it's all just and fair and equal.
Well, I think that every coach that I have seen interviewed, from a Marvin, oh my gosh, I just lost his name. He used to coach for the Cincinnati Bengals. From him, from a Tony Dungy, for those that were former coaches that talked about their experiences. I think all of them are codifying that, yes, everything that Brian Flores has said is true and accurate. Now, again, it's going to be what can be proven in a court of law, but really it's going to be for those people, because he's a coach and he filed his lawsuit as a coach. It's going to be Marvin Lewis. Thank you so much. It's going to be for those of them who are coaches, to participate in that class action. That's what it takes. That's not the players are not going to participate.
No, but yes, I hear you, sister. I'm not disagreeing with that. But all I'm saying is, if you work for a company at any and every level, then it is going to be.
I guess they could boycott. I guess they could walk out on their job. And I know that all of those people have contracts, and they have stipulations in their contracts, and some of them can forfeit that and make a choice to forfeit.
Because we have been talking about this even with Michael Vick and the Dogs, we have talked about this so many times, about the inequitable treatment in the NFL. Rooter to the tutor, up and down, side to side. It has been shown. There's documented evidence. There's nothing we got to guess about. So at some point, the people who are within those organizations, up and down, side to side, they are going to have to speak up and say something. Because as fans, we can, but something that I heard a gentleman say on Tiffany Cross's show, and I'm gonna probably butcher it, so go watch that, because he did a much better job than me. But he basically said these kind of conversations shouldn't even be had in the fan space, because as a fan, we go to this as an entertainment, but these people's job,
right?
And so the employer and the employees, and those are the people that have to rectify these matters. And at this point, with zero Black ownership, it's very unlikely that things will change until the employees boycott and uprise. I guarantee you, if it's any other big company, when the employees say, no, we had enough of this, stuff starts to change. Even if it's for temporary, it changes. Will we accept it as being okay? Not necessarily me and you, but plenty of people accepted as being okay. Was, well, girl, Jay-Z got a seat at the table, because he got a seat at the table, and he gonna be here to help us push through all of these racial issues. A lot of people accepted that. They said, give him a chance. And we see what the chance was. The chance was, give us a fire halftime show. So,
and I'm sipping my drink on that. Girl, listen. I'm still listen. Y'all know I got a whole lot more to say to this. I'm not putting all that responsibility on. We all have a collective responsibility if we of a certain hue, and we're gonna come to y'all. We got to get some guests lined up so we can talk about these voting rights, this gerrymandering, the political agenda, and what we need to do as a people. Y'all go to We Buy Black, support some Black owned businesses. It is definitely about economy for sure, and but you all can do something by taking your eyeballs to someplace else, and that's it.
And we all can do.
But we'll see who's watching on Sunday.
And a lot of people gonna be watching because they want to see MJB and Snoop them in the halftime show. You got women who don't care, not even just women, but you have people who just don't even care about the game, but they want to see the commercials. The Super Bowl has become a part of the American lexicon.
And therefore, there will be no change.
What?
I said, and therefore there will be no change.
No, I won't say therefore there won't be no change. I think you are missing my point.
I ain't missed your point. I heard your point.
I know we all have a part of the responsibility, but if every single Black person took their eyeballs away, it would make a dent. But you know what else would make a dent? If every one of them Black players took their talent away. That's all I'm saying.
And I don't disagree with that.
Okay, then we on the same page.
And with that, y'all, you have tuned in tonight to Hey Sister. This was a lively conversation. We got into the hot topics for the day. And we hope to see you on next Sunday. If you know it's Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, it's time for Hey Sister. Signing off.
Good night.